Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am your host, Ethan Hursadulu, and joined alongside today by Keegan Stiefel, a wrestling fan who I did not know was a wrestling fan, and I'm pumped to have on today. We're coming off the heels of another Monday Night Raw. The road to WrestleMania is in full swing. We have a triple threat that is been kind of heavily expected and rumored for some time now, basically confirmed at this point now. And we also got another triple threat building, and John Cena continues to be absent. So a lot to get into today, a lot to discuss. But Keegan, we got to get into it. The big one from last night, in my eyes, the highlight of the night. Yep. We have ourselves a bit of a triple threat being put together here. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. Looks like they're heading towards that triple threat that the internet wrestling community has been all over for a while now. Before we even get into the discussion on that, thoughts on the match overall? Because in my eyes, that felt like Madison Square Garden-esque between the two of them. Yeah. The heat that Punk and Rollins have together is magical. I think they have great chemistry. Fantastic match overall, some really good spots. But just your thoughts on the match before we get into the details.
Yeah, I thought it was great. There's not to get super like wrestling nerd on people, but I have a problem with a lot of the way WWE does these gimmick matches where it doesn't feel important. And I think since Triple H took over, now they're starting to feel important, where just the psychology of these guys are in a steel cage because they hate each other and they want to beat the shit out of each other. And this whole like escape the cage, climb over the top, ask for the door to be opened. I feel like 5 or 6 years ago, we would have seen guys try to do that, even though it's supposed to be this heated feud, and they're not doing that anymore. There was that bit where, I think Rollins asked for the cage to be open, and he kind of said, "You want to go? You want to get out? I'll let you win the match if you escape." And then Punk turned around and did the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then when you mentioned the heat that they have together, clearly two guys that don't like each other in real life, which is always like the best storytelling, device that you can use. Just two guys who legit hate each other. And they work stiff against each other. I think there was an aspect there where Rollins ripped off Punk's shirt and he chopped him. And I don't know what happened there, maybe something, but it kind of just looked like Punk headbutted him a little bit and was like, "Are you serious? Are we going there?" So whether or not that's them just being really, really good at their jobs, or if they legit hate each other, the lines are blurred there, and it makes it more fun for me to watch. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, absolutely. I feel like when it comes to building rivalries like that, one of the more underrated recipes to the entire meal that you can get, if it's there and available to you, is a legitimate real-life beef. And the constant, do they still really hate each other? Have they squashed it? And this is them just working off of that past issue that they had with each other. The fact that line is always blurred and it feels like you can never truly know unless you know type deal. Like, I love that. It's perfect for this type of rivalry. And which is why I was kind of hoping that we were going to get something of a singles match, whether it was between them two or Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I wanted Roman and Seth obviously being the kayfabe storyline arch rivalry, but you have the real life one between Punk and Rollins. I love when you have that in a one-on-one, especially at a main event like that. But now we're heading into the triple threat. So Roman Reigns, ultimately, as Seth Rollins is, I guess, close to potentially winning this match here, gets dragged out of the ring. And I don't know what WWE was trying to pull here, especially for those that felt like maybe they knew what was going on here. A lot of people seem to be in on the whole Roman might interfere in this match thing. I know I definitely wasn't alone with that thought when I talked about it last week, but the fact that they hid the camera shot from him, and it was great camera work when it happened, but the fact that the crowd was going insane, and you're like, what is the crowd freaking out about? Like, these guys are just laying here, and Roman out of nowhere just rips him out of the cage. I thought it was good camera work for the moment, but I thought it was also funny they were trying to make it a surprise, as if people were expecting this. But I want to get your opinion on this, because Jason and I had talked about this a lot in the last few weeks about this potential triple threat match here, and get your take on just where this could, like, how they're going to make this work, because the seeds got planted last night. Heyman obviously coming in to check in on CM Punk after the match. Roman, after already taking out Seth Rollins, clearly took a bit of offense to that. And you can see right here, made men the garden, Heyman hustle, this Roman Reigns tweet right here. It's interesting because Roman has, I guess, claim, you could say, as Heyman being his wise man over Paul Heyman. So he clearly had a problem with Paul Heyman going in and checking on CM Punk. And in storyline's sake, obviously he must know in the back of his mind, Heyman owes Punk a favor. With all of this going on right now, we now have a loose end tied with Punk and Roman having beef, with Roman attacking him now over the Heyman situation. Are you okay with this triple threat, because I had been banging the table for a Seth Roman finally settle the Shield breakup type beef moment at WrestleMania. We've kind of gotten the match already at like a Royal Rumble a few years ago. Roman ultimately just knocking out Seth Rollins. But I want the definitive blow off. So I'm disappointed we're not getting that. But I want to hear your take on this. And what would you do from now to WrestleMania to get somebody like me, I guess you could say, really invested on this triple threat that I didn't want to see?
I think first and foremost, like you said, everybody saw this coming. This was, if you've been paying attention since the Royal Rumble, it was, obviously the three of them all get eliminated around the same time. Seth does the double stomp in Roman and it looks like he kills him. Like you felt it coming. It was, for me, my problem was, how are they all intertwined? And I understand the favor aspect, I understand the Shield aspect, but getting it all together to make like one cohesive story didn't feel possible to me. From what we saw last night or on Monday night, it's starting to come together a little bit. I still don't love the idea because we've known it was coming for so long. It almost feels like they're shoehorning a third guy into it, whether that third guy is Roman Reigns to the Punk and Rollins beef, or if it's Rollins to Roman Reigns, or if it's Punk to Rollins and Reigns. It feels like they were shoehorning a guy in. I don't know where they go from here to make it feel more cohesive. Like I said, I think it starts with the favor aspect and what you saw on Monday where, Heyman is in the ring, like you said, and checking on Punk, and Roman just kind of snaps, right? And I wonder if that's the storyline where he finally, like we've seen cracks throughout the last 2 years, really, since kind of Cody came into the picture with the title, where Roman was cracking, and there were a little bit of cracks just here and there. And I wonder if they just go full-blown, he loses his mind. He goes crazy, and he's just out for blood with both of these guys. And can you get Rollins and Punk to maybe feel a little bit less like rivals, and they're kind of just protecting themselves from Reigns? I wonder if that's the way they go, but I really do think there aren't a ton of obvious avenues for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I feel like I've just been really stuck on is how does WWE make this make sense, and to your point, also not feel like you're adding Roman Reigns to Seth Rollins and CM Punk, or you're adding CM Punk to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And I really think it's going to come down to Paul Heyman, and something tells me that's probably it's going to have to come down to that, where it's going to feel like a three-way hate triangle through Paul Heyman, right. And he's going to have to do some of the heavy lifting there, because I understand you want to make sure you have guys like that on the card, but my biggest issue is it just feels like you have one too many people that should be maybe vying for a championship that aren't vying for a championship right now, because Jey Uso is with Gunther, and everyone here who watches knows how I feel about how that build's going right now. But for me, it's gonna go through Paul Heyman, and like you said, I like the angle of the Roman Reigns finally snapping, because you would have to assume Punk is gonna pull the "be in my corner" card for this match at WrestleMania. Yeah. And maybe that's what leads to the final break in the cracks that we have been seeing from Roman Reigns, because that's definitely something that we have seen over the last couple of years. So maybe that's the direction it goes. I do like that. Another thing we need to get into, and this is more just me wanting to be able to revel in John Cena for a little bit more as somebody who grew up on the John Cena era. Cody Rhodes comes out last night. He cuts another promo. We have him in the ring alone, no John Cena to be found, no The Rock to be found. It feels like Cody's doing a lot of this heavy lifting until Cena comes on to Raw next week, which is interesting that his return is going to be on Raw, because this is something Jason and I had passed back and forth, but just where the build was going to take place, if it was going to be on Netflix, if it was just going to stay on SmackDown. I know the championship, even though it's on SmackDown, had a lot of play on Raw last year, and it seems like that's the route they're going to go again, because Cena's going to be on Netflix next week. My concern right now is having Cena as absent as he is going to hurt this build in the long run? Does it help or hurt the fact that he's playing this suited up allegiance to the upper management of the business now in The Rock, and him not being around as often? Does that add to his heel character? Is this hurting the build? I want to get your thoughts on that, because in my eyes, excuse me, I want to see Cena in a suit in the middle of the ring, cutting that scathing promo that I know he can cut when he does it as a face, but I want to hear it with him as full-blown for the business John Cena. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think there's a decent chance, even if it's a few words, we hear very little of him leading into WrestleMania.
Don't tell me that.
Because the way I look at it, and we're booking a year out at this point, right? Like, we all know, I think you've probably seen the report, Saturday night's main event in December is going to be in Boston. I would imagine that's going to be Cena's last show. So you've got 7 or 8 months to kind of book out here. The way I look at it is you see a very small amount of Cena, and it's kind of hints of what this character is leading into WrestleMania. And WrestleMania is the big reveal. I don't know how they would be able to do that and keep people interested, because listening to Cody Rhodes, as much as I like Cody Rhodes, and I think he cuts a hell of a fiery babyface promo, him messing up words and getting frustrated almost with himself is, I think, tremendous. I love watching it because it feels real. But you can only get so much of that. There's 6 weeks, right? Or I guess at this point it's
40
a little bit
days,
less.
so whatever that is.
Yeah. 4 or 5 weeks left until WrestleMania. It's like, are we going to watch the same thing over and over again? But I like the idea of WrestleMania is the reveal. That's when you see heel John Cena in the tights, in the boots, which, like, praying that's what we get. I don't want black jorts because he did that when he was a face, and
that also has crossed my mind. Is it black jorts?
Yeah. Give me just bad guy John Cena. I don't want to hear a new theme until WrestleMania, and then he gets his title run. I think he should win it at WrestleMania. Whether or not I'll be back on to discuss that, we'll see. But I think he should win it. He should get a small, maybe even leading into SummerSlam. Let's see how long it is. But that's when you get the experience of the heel John Cena, and then it flips on its head. The back half of the year, he's back to being a face. He fights The Rock. He fights whoever. Rides off into the sunset. So the way I look at it now, you have enough time until he's gone for good to play this out, really get people interested. Then you get the actual heel run where you see him all the time, and then you get the one last babyface run. So I kind of like the way they're doing it. I don't need to see him every week. We'll see him next week. They're advertising it. Who knows? WWE's done this in the past where they've advertised one thing and they've shown us something completely different. But next week, we'll see him. Maybe he's off for a couple more. Maybe you get one more kind of sneak peek into what he's looking like before WrestleMania. And then that's when we start really what we see as heel John Cena.
All right. I like that. I didn't know that Saturday night's main event was going to be in Boston. I'd seen the rumors of okay. Well, if that's the report, I would assume that that's probably something they're going to try to do that, because that would be great. And I will be booking tickets for that. Absolutely.
Tickets, right.
But it makes sense too, because there's also like the reports prior that they might do like a ruthless aggression thing. So yes, that's a good bet. I'm gonna have to look into that. I will say this: I like your idea of not getting the full reveal, like in-ring attire, the music, all that stuff at WrestleMania, because it's just going to add to the build. Like him maybe just coming, like, and then like the one thing I'm struggling with, like this, how does he come out to the ring next week? I guess, is it just going to be in a suit? Is he going to have music? Is he going to come out with The Rock, and maybe The Rock and him come out together? Is it just going to be Cena and Punk? Like, you never really know. Like, Rock just kind of does his thing, and like the last time The Rock appeared on a show, we found out the day before it was going to happen. So we got 5 more days until next Monday Night Raw to see. But I like the idea of a big reveal. The whole thing and we're kind of on the same page with this too, is my thought process is we get heel Cena for now. He wins the championship, and in some form along the way, it's going to feel maybe like empty to him as that hustle, loyalty, respect guy finally doing the heel thing. Right. Maybe it's not what he thought it was going to be, doing it the way he did, and it turns into ultimately him losing, realizing his mistakes, and we get the final face run. One last thing we need to get into here, and this is something that we've had some discussions on here as well. The Women's World Heavyweight Championship match. It's going to be a triple threat. I'm going to bang the table on that one now. I don't think anyone's really confused about that. My issue is just what they're doing to Io Sky, and I want to hear your take on this one. I have a legitimate concern that Io Sky is being used as basically a second fiddle to Bianca versus Rhea. I know that there's the whole angle of Rhea has never beaten Io. That was actually something that kind of went over my head in their initial matchup last week. And with that in mind, I know that's there now, but they even kind of showed it on air. You have Io in the middle of Rhea and Bianca going at each other to the point where she had to like insert herself into the entire conversation by smacking them both up, which I love. That puts her front and center in a situation where she feels like she is the third wheel in a championship match where she's champion. I'm worried that she's there to eat a pin at WrestleMania so they can protect Bianca and Rhea. Am I alone on that? I want to hear your thoughts there, because that is my legitimate concern, and I don't want to see that for Io, because this is an opportunity that she has been grinding for, and she finally has. But WWE's even showing us that on camera at this point.
Yeah, there are a few things better as a wrestling fan when you're, like you said, banging the table for like, I see it coming. Please don't do it. I don't want to see this, full time or come to fruition. And then they play into that, where that's exactly what they're doing with Io. She's a second fiddle. She's really just holding the belt for somebody to beat her for it. Give somebody their big babyface moment at WrestleMania, whatever it might be. But they've started to play into it. And I thought last night the visual of these two, like, powerhouse, just all-time ass kickers are beefing in the middle of the ring, and she's like looking up and she's trying to stop them, and they do the hand in the face. They kind of mush her back. Both of them do it, and then she snaps, and she smacks them both. And one thing that I've really liked that they've done so far, and it's really only been a week, but they're giving her FaceTime, where it's not, for a long time when it was Damage Control, obviously Bayley was going to be the mouthpiece, because there's the language barrier there, whatever it might be. But now it's, go out there and talk and show your personality, because she's so animated and she's so charismatic that they're actually giving her the platform now to do it. And I like her more now than I ever did before, because even though, her English is her second language, obviously, and she's not able to cut a scathing promo like maybe a Bianca or a
Rhea Ripley.
Rhea might be able to. Right, sorry, I blanked out there. She might not be able to do that, but she can still showcase her personality. And it, in terms of a baby face, where all three of these women are technically baby faces, Rhea's kind of flirting on that line. Who knows if Bianca was involved with the Jade stuff. But she's really the baby face here, because she finally won the championship, and she showed that she's on the same level of these women. But now let's really play into that, where in a battle of three women who are all kind of sitting on a similar plane, she can really truly shine through as the fan favorite. So I've enjoyed what they've done. I think it's another situation where you've got 4 or 5 weeks to, is she going to get lost in the shuffle? How many times can you tell this story? This almost feels like it would be the penultimate Raw before WrestleMania kind of angle here, because when she snaps and she showcases what she does. So we'll see moving forward, but so far I like what they're doing.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad that that's where you're at with that, because my concern was starting to get to me that maybe this was what we were seeing, just, and they were literally outright showing us, but I'd never thought of it that way. So that's a good angle, and I hope you're right. I genuinely hope I'm wrong on that, and she's not second fiddle, and this is them putting her in a role where she's competing with, like you said, two powerhouses, two big name household wrestling names, and this is finally her limelight, and she's getting it. And I hope she runs with it, and I hope WWE lets her. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Ringside Review. Keegan, thank you so much for joining me today. If you all made it to the end, as always, greatly appreciated. We'll catch you next week after another Monday Night Raw.